Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today we're going to talk about just some of the medicinal and health benefits and garden benefits of sage. Now this is just the common sage or the garden sage that we're talking about today, the Salvia Officinalis, and if I'm saying that right. And I'll go ahead and put that name, the botanical name right here so you can see it in text. And I'm going to get started. At the beginning, at the intro of this video, you should have seen several photos that I took of my own garden sage. I have 3 pretty good size shrubs and they just keep getting bigger every year. So sage is a perennial. It'll keep coming back every year. And one of the things I really like about it in the garden is that it is also evergreen. So it stays green all year long, even through the winter. So it's one of those great herbs that you can grow that will also still give you some color even through the darkest parts of the winter. And one of the reasons why I love it so much. I love to cook with it. It's one of my favorite for flavors of adding to just about anything. But in particular, things like the homemade sausages that I make, and I'll go ahead and link to one of my videos right up here using wild meat, and in that one I believe I'm using elk meat, and the recipe just is a little bit different than if I'm using a beef to make a breakfast sausage. And pretty much any other dinner type things I love using sage in. It just has a wonderful scent, a wonderful flavor, and it is so incredibly good for you all the way around. Now, some of the garden benefits it has is that it's also good for repelling certain garden pests, as are quite a few of your herbs like peppermint and feverfew and more. So sage is another great one for growing in various places throughout your garden, but you just have to consider that if you're going to plant it, because it is perennial, you'll want to plant it in a place where you don't want to till or dig that area up. I tend to have areas that, even in the main garden where I'm growing perennial herbs like this, well, I'll have them in a line throughout the garden, and these are areas that pretty much will stay untouched. Even though we don't really till, sometimes I do like to take a hoe and till a little bit up by hand. A couple years ago, I did actually move the sage from my main garden bed out here to the west herb garden and also to the garden section in the very front of the house, because it was getting too big for this area out here and taking up too much room. And I have found that the sage tends to thrive quite well in areas that don't get full sun. In fact, this picture I'm going to show you right here, that one is, it's in an area that gets probably full sun, but it's also under some bigger shrubs like an elderberry and some marshmallow and some the feverfew and different things that are all around it, and it's not getting near as much sun as the one on the other end of that same, that's in the west end garden of the other end, and yet this is the one that's getting the flowers on it this year. So, but then I have another one that's in the front of the house, then that gets very, very little sun. It stays mostly shaded, and it is doing really good out there. In fact, I think it's doing better out there than it was when I had it out here in the main garden bed getting full sun. So just a few things. So if you plan on growing some sage, consider putting it in one of those areas where you don't really know what to put there because maybe it's not getting a lot of sun. Okay, now I want to go on about the health benefits to you as a person. Now, the main constituent in the sage that gives it its very powerful health and medicinal benefits is the rosmarinic acid. And that is also found in rosemary. Go figure. And so sage and rosemary are very closely related. Now I'm going to read to you the list I made up, and this was compiled from books and different websites because you can find a little bit different information here and there. So I'm going to read what I compiled for you here and just go down the list. And I also recommend that you do some of your own research. Dr. Josh Axe on his website has a section just on sage. It's a really good one. And many other websites you can find, and also in many of your herbal books. And I'll be reading a little bit out of Amy's book today. But just on the health and medicinal benefits here, hair health. So sage essential oil I like to add to my the oil that I like to rub into my scalp after I wash my hair. And I also like making sage vinegar or adding sage to some of my floral vinegars because of that, because it's really good for helping to stimulate hair growth and also reversing hair loss. And it's just really good for your hair all the way around. And apparently, and I haven't tried this and I keep meaning to, but it will apparently even help darken hair. I'm guessing that means even gray hair when used as a rinse. I don't know. I don't really care because I like my gray hair myself, but just something that you might want to know. Brain health. Now, just like rosemary, it's really good for helping with concentration and memory. So whether you use it as an essential oil, maybe rub a little bit under your nose. We've done that before. I actually include rosemary oil for that same purpose into my headache blend with the peppermint and the lavender, so that it also not only curbs the pain of a headache, but helps kind of make you feel more alert, because you know sometimes headaches can make you just feel tired and run down and you can't concentrate and think straight. So I like to use that, you know, create my own blend using the rosemary, but sage would be the same thing. Other things that it is beneficial when it comes to brain health is helping with depression and for helping with Alzheimer's and dementia. And apparently they're doing more research into that and ways that it can help with that, so that maybe people who are suffering from these different things can turn to more natural methods. I was really excited to find that. And so more research is being done on that, as well as some of these other things. And moving on, let's talk a little bit about bone health. Sage is high in vitamin K, which is the key element that builds bone density. So especially if you're older, or a woman of my age and older, you know, because of the changes in our body, that we can start losing bone density. So obviously we're wanting to get more calcium in our diet, and vitamin K is another thing you want to get more of in your diet, along with vitamin D. So vitamin K and vitamin D work together. And so getting that vitamin K, it's very high in that, in your sage, by adding it to teas and to just different meals like I like to do, is going to really help with your bone density to also stave off or prevent osteoporosis. Now, one of the things when it comes to Ayurvedic medicine that's been used for centuries is topically for skin health, and that is to help with pain, infections, psoriasis, eczema, acne, and inflammation. So this would be used topically, whether it be made as a poultice or made into some kind of cream, some kind of salve that you want to use. Other Ayurvedic ways it has been used is for anything related to the mouth and the throat, such as sore throats, ulcers of the mouth, and so on. Its antibacterial properties are really good for helping with any kind of infection, both internally and externally. It also is very useful for boosting the immune system, and that can happen again also by use topically, or so it's getting absorbed through the skin into the bloodstream, or taken internally as a tea, or just simply added to your different meals. It is great for helping to lower the glucose level in the blood, so it's very helpful to people who are diabetic. It's also great for many digestive ailments, including helping to cure diarrhea, gastritis, ulcers, stomach ulcers, and more. It's helpful in balancing cholesterol. And this one I really liked, and it would explain a lot. It's also really good for curbing menopausal symptoms. Being a woman my age and in that change of life, I use lots of sage, and I notice I have very, very little symptoms. And I'm guessing this is one of the reasons why. Between this and the eggshells, And I think I really believe that just eating healthy overall, getting as many different greens and good, healthy, natural foods into your diet is going to help with all kinds of things, including menopause. That even includes any kind of, any of the depression that goes along with that. Well, we see already back here that sage is good for helping with depression. And I tell you, to me so far, menopause has been pretty much a breeze. A lot easier than I ever would have thought. In fact, much easier than on the other end when I was in my teens and going through that change then. Much less emotional drama going on. I mean, it's just been really great. And I am positive it's because of just having a more healthy diet all the way around and healthy lifestyle. Okay, so that's it for my notes on the sage. And then I wanted to read a little section out of Amy Fields' book, Herbal Companion, the Homesteader's Herbal Companion. And I've been sharing this one quite a bit with people. It's very useful. It's highly recommended. I believe this should be one of those books, top books in your medicinal herb library. So if you don't have this one yet, go ahead and find the link down below, and I recommend ordering it as soon as possible and adding that in there. And I will also be putting in a couple other herb books that I highly recommend that I have. So the section I'm going to read to you on the sage out of Amy's book is just the history, where she's going to cover some of the stuff I have already mentioned and then some. Sage was used extensively throughout history, especially by Arabians and throughout the Middle Ages, for warts, seizures, measles, and worms. Native Americans mixed sage with bear grease to create a salve to treat skin irritations and sores. Sage has also been used to dry up the flow of a mother's milk and to stop excessive urination, saliva, and perspiration. That means sage, like a sage essential oil, may be a good one to add to your homemade deodorant powder. So I'll go ahead and link to my video right up here, and you can consider using that if you perspire a lot. Though I think a certain amount of perspiration is actually good for us, and we shouldn't always be trying to stop it. Anyway, sage is most often used in meals all across the world, especially for sausage mixtures. Today, we continue to use sage extensively in culinary dishes. We also use it to help menopausal women with night sweats and hot flashes. And it treats viral and fungal infections. You can find sage in cleaning products and modern cosmetics as well. So that was the other thing I meant to mention in my notes, is it's also really good because of its antiviral and antifungal properties. It's also good as a cleaning agent. So whether it be you're using a little bit of sage essential oil, and I'll go ahead and link to the sage essential oil I use right down below, or you can buy your favorite brand of sage essential oil. But the one thing I'm going to start doing more of after learning a little bit more about this, and I already have used sage in making my different vinegars, both for my hair wash and for cleaning, I'm going to start incorporating this more into my vinegars that I use for cleaning because of this. And it's used quite a bit. In fact, on Dr. Josh Axe's website, where I was reading about sage, he mentions that as well. You know, a little vinegar and some sage, and you've got a great cleaning product. Well, why not just make your vinegar? And I'll go ahead and link to my latest vinegar making video right up here. When you're making whatever it is, even if it's an apple vinegar, throw some of your sage in there to just, if you're making it for cleaning especially, to give it that little extra boost. Or if you're making it to wash your hair with, like I like to do, then that would be another thing that would help with your hair growth and, you know, helping with any hair loss that you may be dealing with. So, okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Don't forget to check out Amy's book and some of the other books I'll have linked down below. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.